Hey, welcome back. So, today I'm here with my Flutter t-shirt and I want to talk about this article right here of a fellow developer that feels that he made a mistake by investing into Flutter. Okay, I'll start by reading the article for you. So, the title is I feel like I made a mistake investing professionally into Flutter because now there are zero opportunities for me. I have worked professionally in Flutter for 3 years now. The company I worked for laid me off because of difficulties securing the next round of investing. So this looks like a startup already. And he continues by saying, I'm now in the market for a job, and the majority of my recent experience is in Flutter. And in my country of Canada, I'm finding basically zero opportunities. One hiring manager I talked to said it's hard to find Flutter developers. And I'm also observing that it's nearly impossible to find Flutter positions. So it's almost like no one at all is using Flutter. I have a feeling that by the end of 2024, Flutter might be complete afterthought. Though I hope that I completely wrong. Is anyone seeing a different trends in Flutter? Okay, so this is the article. Okay, so before continue, I want to take a moment to comment how original is this post that sparked how much discussion about Flutter, and by mentioning that he's finding difficulty finding a Flutter opportunity, probably created his own Flutter opportunity because of the amount of attention that he probably got at this point. So I think he already deserved like a problem solving capability because he really showed how he can drive attention to him. Congratulations and good luck finding your next Flutter job. So, about the lack of opportunities, we are seeing here two different things. One is about startups, and the other is about Flutter specifically. So right now we are in the market situation where the interest rate is very high, so it's quite normal that a lot of startups cannot find the next round of investing. Yeah, that's perfectly normal. And actually, when I started to work, it was way worse than this. Like, I can show you, for example, here my LinkedIn experience. And when I started to work in 2008, like, I worked one entire year working with Oracle and PLSQL, and even as a test developer, because at the point was very hard to find coding jobs. Like the competition was very high for coding jobs, but even that I needed to work with Siebel and low code stuff that was not really what I was interested on. I managed to in the next interviews to reframe a bit what happened and to say that by working with Siebel and with test development, that I was very aware of how a big application should work, because Siebel is a huge application that has a lot of complexity in the architecture, a lot of configurations in the database, and in that way you tend to can always reframe what we have passed. Even if you don't have like a Flutter position, you probably can reframe it in a way that will help you in the next Flutter position or in the next job position. So your career can be like reframed and redirected in multiple ways, and it's up to the creativity of the employee to elaborate how the stuff is useful for you in the end. But yeah, let's address the problem of Flutter. So right here we are seeing the Google Trends of Flutter, and like what we are seeing right here is that a lot of other like technologies like Xamarin and React Native really have like a much longer period in the market. And that means that like in terms of life cycle, if you think about it, it means that a lot of applications that started like 8 years ago or something like that are now in maintenance phase, and they are coded in React Native, in Xamarin. And this also means for the hiring managers that he was talking about, that is much harder for them to fill this opportunity, because like if a developer have an opportunity to go to a new project and to go to to support an old application, if the salary is the same, you will probably choose the new project because you can have more like ownership. You can have like you can do the things the way he thinks that are good, and not to deal with without needing to deal with how the other guys did the things like uh, in a bad way, like because like we know that in the market you can find like all the types of bad structured projects, and it's always better to go for new stuff, and that's also what is experience. So of course it's harder to go to a technology that are much early in the life cycle and have much less in the maintenance, because yeah, developers prefer to go to this kind of project. And maybe that's why it's a bit harder to find the project. It doesn't mean that Flutter is not a good choice. It just means that maybe you need to wait. You need to go to a project that you'll work in applications both in React Native and in Xamarin. Like a lot of companies really hire mobile developers and expect them to deal with all kind of stuff, native and cross-platform, everything. So yeah, I think it's not really a specific problem on Flutter. At least the data doesn't show that. It shows Flutter as the leading technology already. It's just the question that if you look to the area, yeah, the area for React Native is probably bigger because they have more time in the market. And I also wanted to talk about what's happening with the interest rates. So we also have the economic cycle. It's perfectly normal that now a lot of startups don't are not able to get the funding rounds, because like a lot of people can now invest in the inbounds and get 5% a year. So and a lot of companies that are in debt are now paying more for on interest of that debt. So they are a lot of big companies are trying to deleverage. A lot of small companies are trying to get money, but there are the realities that now it's much harder to get money from the market, because you need to compete with the US government that is already giving you 5% with zero risk. So it's much harder now to get the money, and a lot of companies will go bankrupt. It's perfectly normal. Like the best will survive, but you also need to think like about the long term. Like if you are thinking about if it's a mistake or not to choose a technology, you should think about 5 years to 10 years, not like in the next 6 months. So it's like you need to balance the stuff and to try to go in the direction, but to think that it's not a sprint. It's more like a marathon. You are trying to achieve things in the long term perspective, or at least in the medium term. So yeah, you just sometimes you just need to do what you need to do and wait a bit to have better opportunities. And another thing here that got my attention is that he said that by talking with the hiring manager, that was hard to find Flutter developers. And probably this hiring manager also made him feel like it will be hard to find his Flutter position. And this, in this case, I think a developer should always put themselves in the other guy's shoes. So the hiring manager have like three positions to fill. Neither of these ones are in Flutter in this case. Like this hiring, first thing is that this hiring manager don't have access to the entire opportunities in the market, because like us, you just have like 24 hours in the day. So the amount of stuff that is exposed to, it's not the entire market. And if you can't convince a developer to move from where he is to the technology that the hiring manager needs to fill, then he closes the sales, and that's great for him. So we also need to take this with a bit of salt, because a lot of times recruiters try to convey an image of the market that is convenient to them. Like they will not, for example, if you want to leave the company, it's perfectly normal to the recruiter to say, oh, but now we are in a crisis and a lot of companies will go bankrupt. He will to try to sell you what is convenient to him. Like he will try to make you stay, because if you leave, he lose monies, and he also have his own interests besides the understanding of the market. So he's not necessarily giving you the information that is useful for you. He's giving you the information that is useful for him, of course, because he is also working and also trying to make money. And then we can come back to this Flutter, to this Google Trends Flutter term, comparing with React Native. And we can see that right here, like actually Canada is one of the countries that have more searches in React Native, like at least in the absolute level, it's more in React Native. If we tap in Canada, we can see that right now Flutter is bigger, but if we create like an average of the entire time frame, React Native is higher than Flutter, even not being trendy. So it's probably having like a perspective of a country that is not as invested in Flutter as other countries. If we come back right here, we can see that there are a lot of countries right here that have much more searches. For example, I'm in Portugal, and Portugal is one of them that has more opportunities in Flutter than React Native already. You can also see like here Germany is another country, but if you go, for example, for Norway and Sweden, or even the United States, maybe because they started a little bit earlier to in the mobile development ecosystem, they are a bit stronger in React Native. But yeah, we also need to think that a lot of companies are still on the old stuff. Like I don't mean old as a bad way, but a lot of companies are still investing in Android and Swift, and even if it's not the best thing for them, because like even if you read the biography of Steve Jobs, Steve Jobs, for example, is considered a genius, and he was very much against cross-platform. He was thinking that if you try to support multiple platforms, you will not be good on anything. And like, but he didn't add like the understanding about how the ski canvas work, like what are the layers of abstraction that we can use to make something look the same way in different devices. So it was like more a religious belief that something like based on technical stuff. But this kind of perspectives will frame the market also. Like people will take more time to believe in something if like somewhere like a legend like Steve Jobs said that this thing is not good. Like it will take more time, and it will take time for Flutter to develop and to be like at least perceived as something as good as Android or Swift. You'll see like these benchmarks where they try to rotate like 50 different objects in the screen. That is something that never happens in a normal application, but they will try to create a perception that Flutter is not good enough yet, and a lot of people will believe that kind of stuff. And in your side, you can try to be more of a Flutter evangelist. You can try to also not be just a frameworker in the way that you are just a user of the framework and you are just using the resources that the framework provided to you. You can also create packages and stuff that show you that you are better in Flutter and that you can deliver in Flutter. Um, because also in the middle of these discussions, a lot of people also talked about the Stack Overflow research that showed that Flutter was not paying as well. That's probably also because you have more junior Flutter developers than Flutter senior developers, like because it's harder for a senior developer that already have like 10 years in Java or something like that to go to Flutter than to someone that just went out from the university. It's just pure maths. The one is taking a risk for going to Flutter, and the one that is coming out of the university are taking no big risk. It will receive the same money if it's in Flutter or if it's in Java or any other technology. So when you see these studies about the salaries, you also need to try to understand that maybe it's not that you will not receive as much money because you choose Flutter. Probably you will receive the same amount of money in any technology as long as you code for like the same amount of time. Like maybe you will have like a small change between technologies because of the market demand and stuff like that, but it's mostly based on the years that you worked. It's not really that one technology will give you like a massive advantage comparing to another. It's just a market regulation. Then another thing that I want to talk about is that a lot of people started to talk on Discord that yeah, people should also learn to code in React Native. They should not be just focused in Flutter. And yeah, React Native is easy to remember because it's right here close to Flutter, trying to solve the same problems in the frameworks. A lot of people will also say that you should learn Jetpack Compose or Swift UI, but I don't think that's a good approach to try to diversify your risk in your career. I think like when you want to deliver an application to the stores, you need to learn multiple stuff, and this is just like these frameworks are just ways of solving the same problem. So you are creating business logic, you are creating screens, you are creating like the navigation, and you can learn a bit by interacting with another frameworks, but it's more like you are learning to do the same thing in a different way. It's not like you are learning something that will make you different from the rest of the market. So I would say that it's very important for mobile developers in general, uh, and also for Flutter developers to learn about the stores, to have apps published. Maybe the app store is a bit too expensive for some people. For another, it's okay. But if you have applications in the store, you can go to the recruiter and show, okay, I have this app. This app has users. I know how to do stuff. You can test the app. You can see that the app works well, and I can do like the product market fit. You can see that I, even if I don't have a designer, I will not make a super ugly screen, and you can show and that you know how to use the App Store and the Play Store to get things published, because a lot of people, especially about the App Store, they are very scared that the app will not get published, and it's very difficult sometimes to interact with Apple. And if you have some experience interacting with Apple particularly, it's very good. Also, you can learn about the stuff that is more like divide more in the device layer. So the camera, it's something very specific because you need to have permissions. You need to choose what camera do you want to use. If it's a front camera, the back camera, you need to choose if you want to take a picture or take a video. So you will deal with the same kind of problems if you are in Flutter or if you are in another framework, if you know how to interact with the camera library. Also about SQLite, for example, SQLite is like it's done in C++, and nobody really expects you to go and change SQLite. But if you know how to use SQLite and create like a storage in the phone and create like queries and all this kind of stuff, it's something that can also differentiate you from the other developers. For example, if someone wants to launch an application, now thinking about like with multiple of these stuffs, that they want to use deep links, they want to use TensorFlow Lite and SQLite, and it's in React Native, and you don't know React Native, but you already have experience with this very device specific stuff. You are maybe in advantage because maybe the recruiter or the team already has someone that understands React Native, and they think they can complement that knowledge with someone that knows about some different stuff. Other thing that you can use to differentiate you is like the backend understanding. Maybe you can start with understanding how REST works, the HTTP protocol. You can start to understand about Firebase. You can start to understand by creating your own backend. This will also help in a lot of cases. And what I think is even better is like to understand the coding fundamentals. Like what I see, especially as I pass more and more time in the market, I already code for like 20 years, is that a lot of people don't understand the coding fundamentals, the basics. Like if you ask someone how to create an hash map, how to do a merge sort, a lot of people simply don't know. If you ask someone what is the problem of dealing with money using a float, a lot of people will not understand that the floating point will not have the precision that you need, like when you are dealing with money. And also about the same about coding principles and about the design patterns. So you have multiple ways of evolving your career and of going in the right direction, diversifying your portfolio of skills without necessarily go to different frameworks that will just teach you how to do the same thing in a different way, and in a lot of cases in the worst way. Because if you are in Flutter and you go to React Native, suddenly you are dealing with CSS style attributes that are completely separated from the real stuff. So React Native is not really declarative like Flutter, so it's much harder to divide the components after you started to create the component. Swift UI and Jetpack Compose are probably better. I'm not sure if Jetpack Compose still completely declarative, but at least Swift UI is very good. So if you want to diversify in the frameworks, maybe Swift UI or Jetpack Compose are a good way of diversifying. But yeah, for the other cross platforms, I will not really try to diversify in that way. And about Ionic, like it's even worse because it's not even cross platform, it's just hybrid. Is with WebView. The WebView never works as we expect. So yeah, I will not recommend that path for sure. And also, a lot of people thought that was not a good idea to be just in Dart because Dart is just for Flutter. But also, in the same way, if you are like in an interview and the work is for React Native, for example, you can say that actually Dart is influenced by JavaScript. So, and is also influenced by C Sharp, that is used on Xamarin, so and on Maui. So you are not really taking as much risk as this guy may made it look like. If you are investing your career in Flutter, you are doing an excellent choice. Like Flutter is amazing, works really well, delivers great apps. That's what the market needs. And in a way, you are learning stuff that is used across like a lot of languages. Like I actually after I worked as web developer with TypeScript and JavaScript a lot of years, like about 5 years, I guess. And my feeling is that I didn't I didn't miss anything from TypeScript and from JavaScript that I don't have in Dart. So probably I have everything that I had in TypeScript and on JavaScript, and I even have more functionality like the mixins, like also in terms of data types, the code on TypeScript you have data types, but the code is quite ugly because you need to say that is a variable or is a constant, and then you say the typing. While in Flutter you just need to say the type is much more like Java in that case. That is like Java, but you also have like the dynamic data type. So you can use types, but you are not like forced to use types. So you can prototype something quite fast and only then go to closing the development by giving the types to the stuff that you are creating. So yeah, I think the conclusion is that yeah, if the guy feels that he's doing a mistake, he's probably not. He probably in 5 years or 10 years he will feel like he made a great decision by investing into Flutter. It's just something that happens in the market, especially in these market cycles in terms of interest rates that are very complicated. But yeah, I guess everything is fine for Flutter and probably everything will be fine for him, I hope. If not, just look to this list and try to learn stuff that complement you as a developer, because in the end we are all solving problems that are very similar and are very related with these coding fundamentals, because everything else it's possible to learn much faster than these fundamentals. So yeah, I guess that's what I wanted to say in this video, and see you next time.